No problem. If I could just wait till 10 o'clock, that would be great.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, we are. Okay, good morning, members. Welcome to the Standards Committee meeting this morning. For the benefit of those viewing at home, can I please mention that this meeting is being live streamed and will be recorded for archive purposes. Could I ask all members that if they wish to speak to please come on camera, and obviously if they have any issues throughout the meeting with their camera or their audio when they want to speak, could they please let Democratic Services know as soon as possible? It's not, you don't have to be on screen throughout the meeting all the time, but certainly when you are requesting to speak and with the chairman's permission, you come on, then you have to be on camera so the public can see and hear you under the legislation. So without further ado, I'll pass over to the chairman. Thank you all.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Are there any, Karen?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Janice Charles sends her apologies, but everyone else is present. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Moving on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of October. I've read through those and they seem to be a fair record. Has anybody got any objections or comments? Lorna?
Thank you, Chair. It's just one comment. I know we discussed at some length the issue around late applications, and I don't see that issue. It was just a reminder for people that we've got it recorded that we were a little concerned that we'd received a number of late applications, that we were minded to accept the ones we had received. You know, the process is clear in terms of things that are considered urgent that you yourself would agree to, with the monitoring officer agreed to hear. But just as a general matter, we expect to get them in a timely fashion.
I agree. There was that conversation. Debbie, is it appropriate that the minutes are amended or just noted?
Yes, I mean, at this stage, it's points of accuracy. So that was discussed. Obviously, I wasn't at the meeting because I was ill with COVID. But if that was the agreement, is the agreement of the meeting that was discussed, it can be picked up in today's minutes as an addition. So it's caught that there was that discussion at the October meeting.
Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
See nodding. Good. Fine. Okay. We don't have matters arising, but I see on the last occasion we've got the issue of a representative from the Community Council. Where are we on that? There was going to be one applicant. Anything there, Karen?
Yes, Chair. We haven't had an application in, so I've been in discussions with the monitoring officer, and what we've agreed is that we will do another round robin email to the town and community councils and see if we can encourage them to come forward. Good.
Thank you very much. Now to receive declarations of interest.
Sorry, Richard.
Mrs. Hallett, yeah.
Sorry, Richard. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. In the short term, as we haven't got a representative there, could Mike be asked to stay in place, because we seem to be going into quite a few meetings with no representation from TCCs, as if he was willing to do it, but it just seems this gap with no one there to represent the TCCs.
Yes, Debbie?
It sounds like a very good idea, but unfortunately, by virtue of the regulations, we are restricted in that regard insofar as his second term of office came to an end. So yeah, we are somewhat restricted there. I think it might assist to be aware that I do have, as you're aware, the 6 monthly meetings with the Town and Community Council clerks, and also the clerks on occasions will approach me directly if there are issues. So I think it's fair to say, albeit not ideal, and certainly one of our options is that we will be looking to approach specific town and community council, and indeed Councillor Mike Cuddy, to see if he can recommend somebody to encourage somebody to apply. But in the interim, I think it's fair to say that there is that link for the town and community councils via myself. So, as I say, not ideal, but not maybe not as bad as it might look at first appearance.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's sensible, because if we didn't find anybody, we might find that he was on for months, if not years afterwards, which defeats the object of him having to retire. So thank you for that. Moving on to Mr. Alexander.
Thank you. I just to come back to the previous point, if I may, with your forbearance, Chair. I'm not quite clear. What's the impediment to actually getting someone on from the town and community councils? I mean, I know that you can't exactly, as it were, press gang someone, but I wondered if something more might be done to encourage interest and representation.
I think it's lack of interest, but Debbie, perhaps you'll comment.
Yeah, it is lack of interest. It's not for the want of trying. Just to assure the committee, and indeed we have had interest expressed, but then the individual, I think there were two individuals actually, didn't actually then take the next step, so they withdrew. Yeah, it is proving somewhat difficult, and hence the more sort of, I suppose, proactive step that we'll be taking to speak to individuals.
Thank you, Debbie.
Right, thank you very much on that point. Right, now to receive declarations of interest. Are there any? Silence. Right, none. Thank you very much. We now move on to reports of the monitoring officer. Debbie, item 4, applications for dispensation.
Thank you, Chair. So members can see from the item, we've had 3 applications in from the same councillor, so Councillor Ian Beckley, and each of them are in his capacity as a Vale of Morgan councillor and also as a Penarth town councillor. Each of the applications are to speak and vote. If I go through them each in turn, I think that's going to be easier for the committee to consider the applications and give each application due regard. So the first application in the agenda is to speak and vote on matters relating to the South Wales Fire and Rescue Authority at both the Vale of Morgan Council and Penarth Town Council meetings. The application is up until the next local government elections. The ground which is being relied upon is ground D, and the regulations provide that the nature of the member's interest is such that the member's participation in the business to which the interest relates would not damage public confidence in the conduct of the council's business. Councillor Beckley, as part of his application, indicates that his prejudicial interest comes from the fact that he has family members that are employed by the South Wales Fire and Rescue Authority. I think Karen was attempting to contact Councillor Beckley just to get some clarification as to which family members. I think that would be of assistance if Karen wants to come in at this stage.
Yes, thank you, Debbie. Just to confirm that Councillor Beckley has advised me that he's got a brother and a son who are both firefighters, and he has a son-in-law who actually works for the fire service.
Okay, those are quite close, but is everybody happy with that application? Oh, well, I'll put it the other way. Are there any objections, or does anybody want to comment? No. So that's that, and that is to speak and vote, Debbie. Thank you. Yes.
So the second application, you'll be familiar with these applications, and it's with regards to the reshaping, reforming agenda. It's again to speak and vote. The grounds being relied on are D, F and G. If you wish, I can take you through those, but those are the grounds which are ordinarily relied upon when considering these applications. I think the application is fairly straightforward, and the committee has approved these types of matters in the past to speak and vote.
I think that's absolutely right. Again, any objections to that application? No, thank you. So that's acceptable. Yeah. Then the third application.
And the third application, again to speak and vote up until the next election, and this relates to matters concerning Yscol Derry, as his daughter is employed there. So this is in respect of Vale of Glamorgan Council and Penarth Town Council meetings. Grounds D and E are being relied upon, but as with the first application, ground D would be the appropriate one for the committee to have regard to, insofar as ground E refers to the interest is common to the member and a significant proportion of the general public. So I don't think that can be relied upon, given that the prejudicial interest concerns a member of his family is employed by Yscol Derry. I can see that Councillor Franks has his hand up.
I'm playing catch up, I'm afraid. I didn't pay any part in the previous dispensation discussion, but it is possible that I'll be making such an application. So can I give a belated declaration there? I did attempt, but I'm afraid the technology defeated me. So I plead stupidity rather than anything else.
Possibly technology, isn't it?
Technology, there you are. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yes. So again, no objections anywhere for that application? Sorry.
Could I just say that because you declared an interest, I'm assuming personal and prejudicial for the reason you've given, if you can just step up, I think, you know, so that you're not dipping in and out of the link. If you just step away from the camera and, you know, whilst the members are considering the matter.
Right. Well, Councillor Franks can't hear us now. He's taken that off. Is there any objection to that application? No? Okay. We'll so that will be granted for D only.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. Could Karen phone through to Councillor Franks just to ask him to rejoin the meeting?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, because he's actually not left the meeting as such, it's difficult for me to get hold of him.
Yeah.
I'll keep trying, but if I don't know whether you want to carry on with the meeting because it is difficult. If he'd gone out and come back in, you know, I could have asked him to rejoin.
I thought he'd be very long, and
yeah, I wouldn't have thought he would be, but obviously he can't hear us, so
we're moving on to the public service on.
Yeah, I'll try him on his mobile, but I don't know if yeah.
And Chair, we are correct in proceeding with the agenda.
Well, I think we will carry on now, and when he comes back, we'll try and resume what's going on.
I just managed to catch him on his personal mobile. Thank you.
Councillor Franks, you're back with us, are you? Good.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can move on now to item 5, which is the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales Strategic Plan 2023 to 26. Debbie.
Yes, thank you. I won't say too much on this report other than, the draft is before committee. The deadline for response officially is the 22nd of November, but we've been given a slight extension given the timing of the Standards Committee meeting today. As can be seen, the draft sets out the role, ambition, principles, strategic aims. It's detailed and fairly concisely in the documents, and it's before you if you have any comments that you'd wish me to relay to the Ombudsman's office.
Thank you. There was nothing that occurred to me, but Mrs. Tinsley, you've got your hand up.
I do, Chair. I thought it was very interesting, and I know this is a bugbear of mine, but there's no mention that I can see about timeliness in the strategic aims. And yet, she goes on to say in the update to the complaints procedure that has been clearly a very important matter for them, which they appear to have dealt with extremely well. So I wondered if she felt it was a job done, therefore no need to put it down for strategic aims. But I just think it's such an important matter that these complaints are dealt with speedily, so people's memories are fresh, that they can be resolved very speedily, and any damage limitation can occur.
Well, I agree with that. Whether it needs a comment, I don't know. Debbie, could we...
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, and I think I think it's a fair point for us to relay. I would just mention in the next steps, right at the end of the draft, it does refer to very much in line with unitary authorities that the business plan, there will be a business plan on an annual basis, which will be produced based on the overarching strategic plan, and within that, key performance indicators will be established to monitor performance and measure how we have made a difference. So it might be through the annual business plan that those performance indicators would be picked up. So if you wish, when I'm sort of responding, I can say that we're in line with the draft. That we'd assumed that those issues would be picked up as performance issues under the business plan. I'm in your hands on that, Lorna.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander.
Thank you. This observation just bears directly on what Mrs. Tinsley has been saying, and with which I very much agree. I note that what's said here is the caseload has increased during 21-22, and it's expected that the number of complaints will continue to rise. So from my perspective, bearing on the issue of timeliness, the Ombudsman's service must be adequately staffed in order to meet those requirements. So for me, there's an issue as to how they are resourced in relation to the number of complaints that they receive in order to provide an efficient service. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Franks.
In support of Lorna, the old motto, justice delayed is justice denied. And by the time a complaint gets to an ombudsman, it's been hanging around for long enough, I suspect. Regarding the comment about adequate resources, well, good luck on that. The current climate is one of reduction, not of increase. But if you don't ask, you don't get, do you? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to comment then? I think it's worth making some comment, Debbie, if we can. If you can draft a response to reflect what we've said.
Yes, if you're happy, I'll pick up those points and then draft a letter for approval and sign off by the chair, if everybody's agreeable. Yeah.
Fine. Thank you very much for that.
And then we'll bring the letter back to the next committee for information.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So, assuming you're happy with that, we've now got the letter from the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales re Code and Conduct Complaints Guidance and Process. Debbie?
Yes, and as members we're aware, Michelle Morris took up the role in April of this year, and she has introduced a number of initiatives, and it set out within the letter in the main just to draw out a minor change to process has been introduced. And this is highlighting that obviously in line with legislation, the Ombudsman's Office will continue to share decisions on the Code of Conduct complaints with myself as monitoring officer, but to assist in sharing the data relating to those complaints, what the Ombudsman's Office propose going forward is that they will provide to monitoring officers a standalone decision notice, and share the complaint details. So that will assist me in sharing that information with the Standards Committee, which is welcomed. So that will relate to matters which the Ombudsman chooses not to proceed to finalising an investigation in particular. And as can be seen elsewhere in the letter, that will assist the committee considering whether there's a need for targeted training or even general training on the back of that information. So I think that's to be welcomed. Also, within the letter, the Ombudsman highlights that she's been progressing with an initiative since June, which appears to be working well, and it has assisted in speeding up matters, and that's whereby councillors are only notified of a complaint if a decision has been made to investigate it. Up until June, the process was that once a complaint was received, a council, be that a unitary authority or a community council, was notified of that complaint. So that there has been that change in process, and the intention is to continue with that approach for the reasons set out in the letter. You'll also notice within the letter the Ombudsman is encouraging local resolution. It's something that I think across Wales, the monitoring officers equally would support, so that matters are resolved swiftly and at a local level. So yes, those are points I particularly wanted to draw out. It is for information for committee, and I think also it would be worth adding as an additional resolution that the letter is shared with all members of the Vale Council and also the clerks to the town and community councils, so they can share it within their respective community councils, so that they're aware of this of the information contained in the letter.
Thank you. I can see the merit in the speed of not informing the accused member, etc., until the initial inquiry is concluded. The only problem with that is that the accused member may be asked to recollect something 6 months later rather than 3 months later. So again, it goes back to our point on the last one. It's speed and getting things done quickly and efficiently. Does anybody else share that view? Geraint, your hand is up. You're on mute. You're on mute, Geraint.
I was going to make the same comment, Chairman. The sooner the respondent, if you like, knows of the complaint, the sooner he can consider his defence and marshal his arguments. If he's told months later, he may have destroyed evidence.
Yes.
He may have forgotten conversations, etc.
Councillor Franks?
Strangely, I'm part of a process in another world regarding such matters, and what the Ombudsman is proposing is exactly what we do. If a complaint is made against a person and it's judged to be of no merit, then we don't put that person through all the stress and strains, and the matter is just dismissed and it's left there. I take the point that if time might hinder the person who's accused, but I haven't found that. Now, it's an interesting point, and I'll go away and reflect with colleagues elsewhere. But at the moment, my experience has been it works well, and we shouldn't underestimate the stresses and strains these complaints can put on individual members, and if it can be avoided, that's good. But I take the point that people are making.
Right. Okay. Mrs. Hallett?
Yeah, I just want to comment on, probably my question is to Debbie, what are the likely implications for your staffing levels in having to do an increase in complaints and also for the Standards Committee?
I think it's one that we're going to have to wait and see, won't we, to see how it does sort of materialise. Certainly, we don't have a significant amount of complaints coming through. I think also the fact that the council introduced, the Development Council introduced mandatory training, quite a significant mandatory training programme after the elections. I think that has assisted, and there are, lots of opportunities for further training if there's a need. So at this point in time, there aren't issues from my perspective and from a staffing perspective, but famous last words. We'll watch that with interest, and I'll certainly feedback.
Good. Okay. I think we've discussed that, and I don't think we need to do anything more about it. So I think we can move on. I think it's just to be noted that, Debbie.
Yeah, noted and shared with the members and the Town Community Council clerks.
Yeah. The letter to the chairs, is that included at the end of that section, or is that a bit later on?
It is. That's under agenda item 6.
6. Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully you've all read that and noted it. I don't think it takes it a great deal further. Thank you very much. Now we move on to observations of Vale and of Glamorgan and Town and Community Council committee meetings. I gather 3 of us have been. Lorna, have you, I gather, have been out somewhere? You're on mute, Lorna.
Sorry, I thought I'd taken her off. I have been out and about to Penarth. It was a very enjoyable meeting. I joined it remotely. they had a number of planning applications which they were able to share on screen as a visual aid, which they managed extremely well. Very timely agenda, very well chaired. Nothing else to say.
Thank you. Gerwyn, I gather you've been also out and about?
Yes, I attended a meeting of the Llandoch Council. It was a remote meeting. I was a few minutes late joining, but that's a connectivity problem at my end rather than the council's. It was a very well conducted meeting. Chairman clearly in control, got through a fairly sizable agenda quite quickly, expeditiously, made sure all members were able to contribute. The clerk offered advice and guidance without in any way usurping the role of the councillors, and there had been several attachments to the agenda, and it seemed clear to me that everyone had done their homework. So everything was positive and no adverse comments. Good.
And then I went on Tuesday to Cowbridge Town Council, and it was I went in person, and it's so much better, I think, going in person. This was similarly a very well conducted. I note at the back, this was a very good meeting. The chairman had a very pleasant style, and the clerk was excellent. She added things which were necessary. And I commented it was good to see an equal mix of male and female members and some younger members. I was impressed that the council seemed to be working together for the benefit of the electors, and there was a huge improvement from the last time I visited, which was probably 2 years ago. There was one issue which I have actually discussed it with Debbie, because it caused me a little bit of concern. There was a declaration of interest, and 2 councillors declared a personal interest. They didn't explain what it was, so I had no idea. There was nobody else from the public there, so that was irrelevant, I suppose. I got the impression that that they made this point before, so everybody knew what it was. But of course, I, as a member of the public, didn't. And I think it's something we got to look out for. That if there is a disclosure of an interest, we ought to know what or they ought to say what it was. I think it would have been better if the 2 people had been asked to leave the room. I mean, it's interesting. We did this with Councillor Franks now, even though it was there was no point at issue. There was quite an awkward issue that they were discussing, and I felt that the other members could have been felt restricted by talking when they knew those 2 people were there. It was also put to a vote so that the 2 people knew how individuals voted. And I think my note is that whilst technically correct, I think it would have been better to have erred on the side of caution and to have asked the 2 people to have left the room. That's a personal view. As I say, I think, Debbie, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but what they actually did was correct. And I don't know if you have any views on it.
Yes, thank you, Richard. So you're absolutely right. When, in line with the Members' Code of Conduct, when a personal interest is declared, the member is required also to declare the nature of the interest, and that should be recorded in the minutes. So this is a point that will be taken up with with the town clerk, and also it'll be shared at the next monitoring officer meeting I have with all town community council clerks, which is due in December. So absolutely, the nature of the interest should also be declared, so that there is that awareness of the interest. Now, on this occasion, as you've mentioned, the members declared a personal interest, but not a personal and prejudicial interest. So as members will be aware, if you've got a personal interest, but it's not prejudicial, there isn't a need to remove yourself from the meeting. You can take part in the discussion, the debate and the vote. And of course, it is a matter for the individual member to make that decision. It's on their shoulders, and a matter of them. Of course, they can seek guidance should they wish to do so. We don't know on this occasion whether they did, but that'll be a matter that we can discuss. What I would say is, when speaking with Richard, there was reference to a grant being provided by the town council, and there is an exception within the members' code of conduct to a matter, a personal interest becoming a prejudicial interest, where the matter involves, and I'll read from the members' code of conduct, your role as a community councillor in relation to a grant, loan or other form of financial assistance made by your community council to community or voluntary organisations up to a maximum of £500. And when Richard was liaising with me on this matter, he did clarify that this did relate to a loan and it was for £500. So it sounds as if, based on what was said, that there was that exception to the prejudicial interest. So we'll work through that with the town clerk. I think on the face of it, it would just appear that the nature of the interest wasn't declared, and we'll remind the town clerk of that going forward.
Would it be better if I explained the nature of the application, Debbie? I mean, it's on public.
I think probably not for this meeting, but okay. I think based on what you've advised me, it would appear, and of course it's. I think it's helpful, the comments that you've shared, and we can take it up with the clerk.
Fine, thank you, Councillor Franks. Franks, you're muted at the moment.
I would say I tend to advise councillors to err on the side of caution, and but also it's their responsibility. But I got to say, when people do leave the room, it does seem rather artificial in some circumstances. And if there's a group of you that leave the room, you form a little group and gossip about everyone else who is left in the council meeting. So it can be a bit of fun, actually, but it does seem sometimes rather artificial, especially if the topic is really a matter of great local community good, and we don't know the exact circumstances that you're describing, but I suspect it could be a local worthy charity, and people are sometimes a bit bemused that they would have an interest. So I'm flagging up that a little bit of understanding might go a long way, but I always tell people, if in doubt, declare and leave the room. It's just not worth putting yourself in jeopardy.
Yes, thank you. Debbie?
Yeah, the only additional comment I was going to make is that obviously the town clerk is a very experienced clerk, and I know that she's aware of the opportunity of seeking a dispensation from Standards Committee. So again, as I say, we can tease that out with a conversation, but I suspect that had she felt that the interest didn't fall within the exceptions under the Code of Conduct, that she would have been advising the members, or I think it was 2 members who said to leave the meeting, and as an alternative, advising them to seek a dispensation and possibly deferring the matter. But certainly we can tease those matters out.
Yeah, I think it was only, I was looking at it from a practical view and as a view of a chairman, that it could be embarrassing. That was all. Okay, but apart from that, I mean, it was excellent, and as I've said, as I said before, it's such a huge improvement on the last time I went there, which was 2 years ago. I'm going to Llangan on I think the 1st of December, and I don't know, Karen, do we are there plans afoot for some other councils to be looked at?
Yes, Chair, at the last meeting and in this report I have mentioned that I've sent a list out to all independent members, and they are regularly contacting us in the office, and we are making those arrangements as and when appropriate. So yeah, over the forthcoming months now, no doubt members will be reporting back to Standards Committee following their visits. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, the other councillors, for visiting. That's good. Right, correspondence, item 8, correspondence with the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. Debbie?
Yes, just to mention on this, I have received, I think, 1 item of correspondence since our last meeting, and I'll pick that up under part 2, given the nature of the matter.
Thank you. And now, any items which the chair has decided are urgent. There is one item. I was disturbed in the middle of watching the football last night by Karen and Debbie, who were also watching the football. I was pleased, but they work until midnight. Fair play to them. That we had this letter in, and we thought it was right that it should be brought to your attention. So hopefully you've received this letter. This is the first meeting of the forum. Debbie, perhaps you'd like to enlarge on it?
Yes, it was with great excitement that since the dispatch of the agenda that we've had progress on the matter of the National Forum Standards Committee. So hence we felt we'd share the news and share the terms of reference that have been shared, and I can also update you as to what's on the agenda for the inaugural meeting. So it is for information. Apologies for the lateness. So the first meeting is going to be on the 8th of December. I will be attending that meeting as the monitoring officer for South East Wales, as will Richard as the chair of the committee. Within the body of the report sets out the purpose and let's say the terms of reference of the forum, and of particular note section 2 of the report. So that's there for information. And at the first meeting, the agenda covers off the election of the chair, election of vice chair, the role of the and terms of reference as detailed within the report. There'll be an update on the Richard Penn report, so you'll remember that. It seems quite some time ago now, doesn't it? But we'll be getting an update as to how that is progressing and next steps with Welsh Government. This being obviously part of the Richard Penn recommendations that a national forum for Standards Committee be established. So that's a positive one. There'll also be a discussion on the implementation of the new duty on political group leaders and how this will be reported as part of the Standards Committee annual report. So as you're aware, at the end of this municipal year, financial year, there will be an annual report, and as part of that, the committee will need to reflect on the how the political group leaders have adhered to their new statutory roles. So that will be good. to get some consistency, albeit, as you'll note from the paper, the forum isn't a decision-making body. It's about sharing good practice, giving that opportunity for discussion. The delegated authorities resting as ever with the Home Council Standards Committee. So we'll share the outcome of that discussion. I think the intention is there should be 1 or 2 meetings per year, and also we will have a guest speaker. The Ombudsman Michelle Morris will be attending that meeting, so quite a full agenda there.
Thank you very much. Any questions or observations? No? So we'll report back to you in the new year as to what happened there. Right, I think that concludes part 1. I think we'll move to part 2. Karen, perhaps you can tell us when we can do that.
Yes, Chair.